Welcome everybody back to Nerd Corner, now featuring Channel Dad Bryon Lape. And here we have a very interesting article. It's very short. So this is very interesting. Windows 10's built-in Linux kernel will be available soon to everyone. This is something that I've reported on previously and I've also looked at. This has led several friends of mine to speculate and theorize that eventually what we know as Windows will just be a shell over Linux, basically just some kind of, user interface presentation layer, as it were. Maybe. I think if that's so, it's going to take a long time. Windows has a lot of DOS baggage that Microsoft has been trying to get rid of for years. But we'll see. I think they just ought to run that stuff in a virtual machine very much. And I've been saying this as well for years. They ought to do exactly or very similar, essentially, to what Apple did. Come out with a better OS when they went to Mac OS 10. Based on Unix, they ran the old stuff in a sandbox for a while and eventually said, you know what, screw it, get rid of it. They could do this very easily because there's already VM machines and things like that you can. I used to do this when I ran Linux at work, and I eventually had to have Windows for a couple of things. I installed it in a VM, and I only gave it like one core. I had 4-core laptop. And I, limited the amount of RAM memory it had because I just needed Outlook and a few Visual Studio things. That was it. So anyway, this is very interesting. So this is from Engadget. So Engadget, I guess, from John Fengus. You don't have to be a tester to try Windows 10's new built-in Linux kernel in the near future. Microsoft has confirmed that Windows subsystem for Linux 2 will be available when Windows 10 version 2004 arrives. You have to install it manually for a few months until an update adds automatic installs and updates, but that's a small price to pay if you want Windows and Linux to coexist in peace and harmony. It'll be easier to set up, at least. The kernel will now be delivered through Windows Update instead of forcing you to install an entire Windows image. WSL2 focus isn't so much on basic functionality. There's been an emulator for a while as it is performance. It should load and run faster with reduced memory consumption to free up RAM for other tasks. This prioritization isn't completely surprising now that Microsoft is less dependent on Windows sales and more on services like Azure. It benefits them to when it treats Linux like a first-class citizen. Still, it's clear Microsoft has come a long, long way from the days when it was waging a war on Linux and otherwise trying to hold onto its monopoly in computing. So that is it. I'm going to see if this article comes up properly in our, another 233 of our patents. So this is, 2007, Steve Ballmer. But we had I did previously about Microsoft Teams, which runs on Linux. That's the first Office application that runs on Linux. There's OpenOffice, there's LibreOffice, there's some other stuff for Linux users. That's where Microsoft's going to have some problems with their really high prices for that stuff. But we'll see. Now there are 25 comments which I want to get to. If this news is about the release that was done yesterday, the Linux kernel update was easy to do with MSI file, but it didn't fix my biggest issue with WSL2, i.e. the bash window resizing crash. Maybe a big bang drop of Linux with small window on the side and wallpaper. Okay. Little by little, they're converting into a Linux company. Yeah, now granted, I am not fully bought into this idea, but I do have some friends that say they think that's where it's headed. They can't help do it a dinosaur slow. Yeah, again, they're still got a lot of DOS crap they can't. I know people still run 7. There's still people running XP out there. But in my opinion, the long view is that they simply will switch over to using the Linux kernel as their primary one. No pay for that silly software, and they apologize. Well, the thing is about you have to have a free version of your OS, but you don't have to have it free. This is kind of what Red Hat does with their Linux. This is why you have Fedora, and some other ones do the same thing, or you buy the support. So maybe it lags behind a little bit, and Ubuntu and others you're paying for the support and stuff like that. It's more of Microsoft's gesture attempt to remain viable, relevant, and significant in a world where increasing has no use for any of their products. They're trying to convince the ignorant that GNU Linux can only be used inside a Microsoft environment, where, incidentally, you will be surreptitiously tracked. Must use various And owe the money. Yeah, there's some of that. That's hilarious considering 9/10 machine run Windows. Azure is the fastest growing cloud platform. I will say this: I have used Azure and I've used Amazon cloud services, and Azure is much easier. But I will, but the Amazon is much more robust. Put it that way. Azure is a bit fragile. But yes, exactly. How do you explain why Microsoft is trying to? As weird as it seems, I've installed Linux on several machines I've built for a computer illiterate family members. If all along they're doing is browsing the internet and a few other things, yep. And I have done that for people too. And as soon as they want to run a game, then you're screwed. Which article has a substitute? Okay, lazy, useless junk. Has been noticing this a lot later in the tech articles. Too many fluff. There is some of this. This is a very light. It's a lightware hyper VM. You can start from your desktop. Okay, and networking is shared between Linux. Okay, that's interesting. That's cool. And it says there's 2 more replies. Let's see if we can see them, and then we're gonna go on. And so I am taking this with a grain of salt. I think it's a good thing, because I really do believe that that's where they're headed, where and that would be great, because there's some programs that people refuse that, oh, Linux is too small. But if Windows and Linux are indistinguishable at a OS level, they've done this. They've split off the .NET, right? They've removed all of the Windows stuff from .NET. .NET Core is 3 is no Windows. Some of the stuff that like WCF and WCP and things that people are using, there are some open source projects to try to bring those back inside a Windows environment built on top of Core 3. They're going to skip, I think is it Core 4? I think they're going to skip because of the .NET 4 platform. But moving forward, .NET Core is really moving away from Windows as far as, pretty quickly, and 5, 6, and 7 and 8 all along the lines. So I think they're going to move their Office applications to Core as soon as they can. So I think this is where they're going, because this is whether it's a Linux variant that you can buy or get, we'll see. But they need the stability, and they're just constantly seeing articles where the latest Windows update screws up stuff and has security holes. But we'll see. We will see. I would like to believe that this is what's happening, and Microsoft becomes a better company for it. And a lot of products will just suddenly become Linux compatible because they're Windows compatible. And that'll be awesome, because it'll give us a little bit more choice. And in particular, if it's true about their earnings, and they go fewer and fewer, because they're going to still, in the business environment, most likely they're going to still have that, because most large businesses are not going to want to put up with the free stuff, right? They're going to pay for support. It's going to be stable. It's going to be good. And it's not going to be, we got to patch it. We got to do this. We got to do that. Nonsense that many times you do with Linux. So we'll see. So what do you think about this? Have you experimented with the Windows 10 built-in cleaner? I'm going to have to download this on my Windows 10 machine and check it out. All right. Thanks so much. And let me know in the comments below. And thanks for sharing. Goodbye. All right. Let's go. We don't have much time. 3, 2, 1.